All right. So Colin, our wonderful CEM, is actually going to kick off most classes from now on, now that he is fully engaged, and give some announcements even before I put up slides and stuff. So we've got 76 people and counting. So Colin, if you want to wait a couple of minutes, cool. But I'll try to.
I think I can kind of soft get started while people trickle in. Thanks for that, Carrie. And as Carrie said, I am now taking over the CEM duties in earnest. So you don't have to, if you message me, you can just message me directly. You don't have to worry about attaching Clark onto it. And I would like to just make some hopefully quick Unit 2 announcements. First of all, congratulations to everybody for making it this far. Unit 1 is not easy. I certainly know that, and it requires a lot of effort and dedication, particularly for all the other things you have to do in life. So doing this in the whatever time you have available is certainly no mean feat. So I hope everybody had restful holidays, and I hope everybody has a chance to take the time and pat themselves on the back a little bit for making it. Yeah. I also wanted to very quickly give a brief overview of the schedule for Unit 2 past, or for Unit 2 and beyond, really. So we're starting Unit 2 today, and we are ending it March 30th. So from now until March 30th, we are getting into Java and time leaf and all that fun stuff. And then after that, shortly after that, we'll have the graduation, and then liftoff starts after that on April 10th. And I'll add all these dates to Slack later. But so liftoff is an 8-week, for those of you who don't know, it's an 8-week course where you make a project with fellow learners and also get your career stuff and everything ready to go for apprenticeship placements. And we are going to have Mike Northrup from the company team here at Launch Code, who he works with apprenticeship candidates and talking to the various companies that we're partnered with, and it works on getting candidates placed. So he's going to come in January 19th and kind of answer any questions y'all might have about getting to liftoff and the apprenticeship pool and all that kind of good stuff. Also, I wanted to touch on assignment due dates and drop deadlines for Unit 2. And I will make this as clear as I possibly can for this topic. There are no drop dates for Unit 2 outside of the very end, March 30th. That is the only drop date. You might see due dates for assignments in Canvas, like assignment 1 is due this day. You can not turn that in. It's not a big deal, as long as all 4 assignments are turned in by March, are turned in and graded, and you get a 1 on all of them. March 30th, then you're all set. That being said, I will be using the due dates for assignments. I will be checking to see who has yet to turn in stuff, and just checking in with learners periodically if it's a little bit past the due date and the assignment hasn't been graded. I just want to make sure that if there are any blockers, or if anybody is not maybe taking to the concepts in Java as quickly as they did in JavaScript, I want to make sure that we get everybody on the right track. So don't be alarmed if you get a DM from me just asking what's up. If you haven't turned in an assignment past your due date, everything's fine. I just want to try to get you with the TA and see if we can get things sorted out. If there are any difficulties, sometimes you just have an off week or not too much time that week. And for my next topic, I wanted to talk real quick and remind people about academic honesty, because this came up a little bit during grading. And it can be a little muddy with code, but I want to make this as clear as I possibly can when it comes to working on your assignments. It is perfectly, these are the things that are perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to talk about concepts from chapters, even those related heavily with assignments. It's fine to talk about kind of parallel problems that you might see within your assignment and work on those kind of similar problems together. It is not okay to look at other people's code or copy other learners' code. That's the biggest thing here. And I wanted to emphasize that because as far as I see it, there are two main takeaways that you receive from launch code, which are knowledge and community. You don't get a degree at the very end of launch code like you would with a 4-year degree. We're banking on you learning concepts and being able to display the knowledge that you've learned through interviews and through your ability to build projects. So I just want to make that very clear to everybody that there's no point if you are copying code and unable to understand what it's doing within the program. And if you are copying code and you are able to understand and explain and articulate what it's doing, then I would wonder why you're copying it and not just doing it. It seems way easier that way. But yeah, I think if anything is muddy or you ever run into a situation around assignment work where you are unclear as to whether it would be against the codes of conduct or not, just check in with the TA, with your TA, and see what they have to say and go by their best judgment. Okay, well, now the downer topics out of the way. I've seen a few things in study groups and in general chat about people planning meetups. I'm going to try to talk to Clark once I get in St. Louis about seeing if we can host anything over at the Del Mar location and kind of be a place where study groups can get together, or failing that, try to host some get-togethers for study. And really, because I know how important that can be in building community and just learning is way easier when it's done with other people, for a lot of people. Okay, that was a lot. To wrap up, if you check in the office hours channel, if you ever want to make an appointment with me for whatever reason, don't hesitate to use the tab at the very top. It says meet with Colin. It's right in the office hours channel. And you can schedule an appointment with me for whatever reason related to the class, I'm hoping. And yeah, you can always DM me if you have any concerns about anything. And I think that is all I have for today, but I wanted to see if Sarah is here.
I am.
Oh, hey. Yeah, I'm gonna pass it over to Sarah and let them reintroduce themselves.
Thanks, Colin. Hello, everyone. Wow, I'm spotlighted now. It's good to see your faces, and I just wanted to remind you that I'm still here if you have things that are coming up outside of class that you'd like to discuss. And I love to hear about your successes as well. So if you want any cheerleading on things, I'm happy to smash like the appropriate emoji in support of you. So yeah, keep an eye out on the resources channel. I'll share resources there. And you're always welcome to book a meeting with me at sarahfreimler.youcanbookme.com. And that's also in my profile. So if you click on my little like icon in Slack at Success Coach Sarah, then you can see the link there and book a meeting with me. But yeah, I'm excited for you to be in Unit 2 and welcome to the new year. Back to you, Colin.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Sarah. That's all I have for today. Yeah, enjoy the lecture, enjoy Java.
Thank you both very much. Yeah, I'm excited about this. You guys are going to get to delve into a whole new world of coding and tools that are going to allow you to do some really, really cool things by the end of the unit. So without further ado, as Mandy always says, I'm going to switch over. If I can find there we go. All right. I think I'd never done this before. Only 3 weeks and I'm out of practice. What's up? All right. Okay, so chapter 1 and chapter 2 for class 1. We're going to talk about Java and the main IDE you'll be using, IntelliJ, and then we'll talk about data types and kind of, get right into the heart of, the basics, the building blocks of syntax for Java. So let's go over here. All right, so I'm going to kind of Colin covered some of the announcements that I've got on here. I've got some stuff that I'll talk about for a second, but then we'll get into lecture and you'll do your studio, and then we'll come back for a studio review. So this is kind of our classic class format. Unit 2 resources. Okay, so I have updated the bookmarks at the top of the announcements and general channels. And I will pull this actually onto the screen to show you what I am talking about. Hold on. Gotta get my Slack up. Here we go. Okay, so up here at the top, if I make this wider, you can see all of them. Otherwise, you can always go to the little drop down right here for the rest of them. But you've got all these bookmarks. If you are not aware of these by now, I mean, you should be after a whole unit, but this is where you can get to the Zoom link, the lecture playlists, the PDFs that I make of all the slides, the TA office hour spreadsheet. And so now you can see that in addition to the unit 1 link from last time, there's going to be a new playlist. If you click on this, it will say there are no videos because we're only just getting started right now. But after tonight, there will be a couple of videos up there. So new playlist, I figured there's 39 videos in the other playlist. We probably ought to start a new one. And of course, the extra practice exercises I have over here are sadly only related to JavaScript, unit 1, Angular, things like that. I do not have the same thing for Java yet. Can't promise that I will. I have a lot going on, but yeah, you can always go back if you're wanting to keep sharp on your JavaScript skills before you get to lift off. Then I highly recommend you kind of jump over and do some of those. Okay, so back to here. Keep using that hand raising feature in Zoom to kind of get my attention if you have questions. And then you can also use lecture chat and lecture questions channels in Slack. I noticed there's only 45 people in lecture chat, so I guess not everybody's aware of that one. But since we have chat disabled in Zoom, that's a great place to kind of just, talk. And then if you have questions about content, specifically lecture questions is of course a great place to do that. And TAs are keeping an eye on it, and I will come back and check it when I have time when we get done. And will hopefully help you clarify some things that weren't clarified during the lecture itself. Okay, enough about that. So next week, sorry, this shouldn't say next week. I'll fix that. Next week, you have 2 classes, Monday and Thursday. The week after that, there's no class on the 16th because of MLK Day. And then there's a catch-up class on the 19th. And Colin did mention that Mike is going to come from the company team to talk about how apprenticeship works and all that. And then, of course, that graded assignment number 1 is due on Monday. Wow, my dates, guys, I am so sorry. That's not correct at all. So let me get you the right date. I mean, it should be the following Monday. So yeah, it's the 23rd. I'll fix that too. So Monday, the 23rd is when the first graded assignment is due. You will just be running a program in the console, nothing fancy yet. And it's just going to be the content from chapters 1 through 4, which is the first 3 classes, everything before Martin Luther King Day. So, all right. Let me get this back. Here we go. All right, so let's jump in. We're going to talk about Java and IntelliJ, a little bit of an introduction here. Java is popular. It's not JavaScript. And we're going to talk about using it in the terminal and using it in IntelliJ. So Java is very popular. It's used as a server-side language and for backend development primarily, and it's used everywhere. And I mean everywhere. It's seriously probably one of the most fundamental languages out there, that is widely used by big companies for a lot of different things. Android apps use Java. Google's kind of been moving away from it, but there's still a ton out there that's Java based. So there's a lot of jobs related to that, that if you really like Java and want to work in that, and want to be an Android developer, that's a great place to do it. And it's actually heavily used by companies that partner with LaunchCode in St. Louis for apprenticeships, which is one of the reasons that LaunchCode chose to teach Java primarily the last several years. You know, it's a great reason to learn it, because there's lots of available jobs out there for it. So here's an example stack, and this is, you've seen this little diagram already because I showed it to you when we were talking about Angular. You've already learned JavaScript and Angular with TypeScript for front-end development. So now you're going to be learning Java with Spring Boot framework and SQL for databases for back-end development. That's what we're going to focus on this unit. All right, differences between JavaScript and Java, just to help clarify this for you. JavaScript is a dynamic interpreted scripting language. It's originally designed for client-side use, native to browsers. As you know, you can do lots of cool interactive things with it in the browser. It's loosely typed. The types are inferred at runtime, and that's why you had to learn TypeScript, to have a way to type things that are, sort of JavaScript-ish. And it has a very relaxed syntax. You can get away with a lot. And it's very heavily on functional programming, meaning you can have functions kind of just exist out there on their own. They don't have to be methods of a class, right? Even though you can do classes in JavaScript for object-oriented programming, you don't have to. And it's commonly written in a text editor like VS Code. Don't really have to have a heavy-hitting IDE for something like JavaScript. And it's very easy to learn as a first language. So that's kind of why we started there with you guys. For those of you who have absolutely zero knowledge about programming at all before coming into this course, JavaScript's a good one to learn. So Java is static, not dynamic. It's an all-purpose compiled language, and it's designed for server-side use. So of course, that means that everything has to be set before it compiles. So it's very strongly typed. It has very strict syntax, and it's entirely based on object-oriented programming. So everything is class-based. There's nothing that you will write that is not going to be part of a class one way or another. It's commonly written in a full IDE. So we're going to use IntelliJ. Other popular one out there is Eclipse, and there are others. You could argue that it's more difficult, but because you already know the basics of programming, we don't have to focus on the concepts of programming. We just have to focus on the syntax that's particular to Java, and the way that it works within a framework like Spring Boot to build an application. So we can kind of dive right into a lot of things, and you guys are going to be moving right along with it because the concepts themselves overall are already familiar to you now. Okay, so let's talk about using Java in the terminal. You can use it in the terminal, like just to run a quick file. Your book kind of gives you a way to practice this and run through it. So we'll just talk about this for a second. Once you have it installed, if you don't, see chapter 1, I hope you do. You can test it in the terminal by, going to a directory where you want to create a file. You can create it with a text editor, like in the console, use like Vim or Nano or something. I prefer Nano because I used Pico in the 90s and it's essentially the same thing. You can just code a basic Java class. You have to know what that is, but they give you that in the book. I will say this because you can see the kind of structure of the class right below there, right, as an example. You don't need to know how these classes work yet. We're going to get to that in class 3, chapter 4, to do what we're going to do tonight. All you need to know is that main function. Anything you put inside there is what executes. So all the code you're going to be writing, just initializing variables and printing things to the console and getting user input, everything we do is going to be inside that main function right there that's inside the class. So you can do this very quickly in a little file and then just save and exit right back to your prompt. And then you can use the Java command to execute the file. And your textbook walks you through this process so that you can, kind of practice, making sure your computer's set up right, that it all works. And that's a good place to start before you start, jump over into IntelliJ. So real quick, I'm going to run over to here. And I'm going to say like, nano, and I'm already in the directory that I want to be in. I'm going to call it example2.java, and it's open it up in nano. And that's funny. It opened example1.java. Interesting. Okay, I don't know what just happened, but here's an example already written out. So we have public static void main. This is, just, you have to have this signature right here. And it has this generic, array of strings with, args being thing, but that's not important. It's important to have it, but you don't need to know, you don't need to necessarily use this. So anything you put in here, like I said, will just run when you execute this file. So all I've got here is a basic print to the console, which uses system.out. And then this method print line, print ln. And then I just put the string in there. You can run Java in the terminal. Okay, so that's all I've got is just, it's going to execute that one line of code. So if I exit out of here and come back, I can say Java. Oh, I did say example1. That's why it opened it. That's not what I meant to do. I was going to actually code it for you from scratch, but that's okay. We talked about it instead. All right, so now I can do Java example1.java, and that's going to actually run it. And so there it goes. You can run Java in the terminal. So we see it, get that output right there to the console. So this is a very great, quick way to play around. If you just want to test some, some little concepts or something, and you don't want to create a big project for it or anything. And whoa, I totally just almost knocked over my water. That would have been sad. Okay. This, you can just do it right here. So super great. Okay. I'm going to drink some of this water before I spill it all over the floor. All right. So let's move to the next option, which is using it in IntelliJ. This is pretty much where you're going to live. So when you first open up IntelliJ, once you have it installed, and again, your book walks you step by step through this process. So if you have not done it yet, you're going to need to do that, like tonight during studio. And you can initially kind of open a project 3 different ways. So you can create a brand new project, or you can open an existing project that you've worked on before that's already on your local machine. Or you can get a project from VCS, which is version control system, right? And we use Git here. And this is kind of where you're going to go if you're going to clone something from a remote repo. So one of these 3 options will get you where you need to go. If you're going to create a new project, you will use either Pascal case or hyphenated lowercase for the project name and put that in there. Kind of up here, I stole this directly from the textbook, guys. A, and then B, you will select a directory for the location where you want the project to live. You can have it go ahead and initialize a local Git repo for you if you want by checking this little box right here, create Git repo. Choose Java as the language, of course. And then for now, we're going to use Maven for these projects. And then when we get into Spring Boot, you'll be probably using Gradle instead. But you're going to select Java 11 for the JDK, and make sure if you have multiple ones, you'll need to, possibly select it. I have multiple ones, so I definitely have to do that. And then if you want it to put in some sample code, like a little basic class, you can do that. Since you're new at this, it kind of gives you an example of where it happens, but I will show you what the file structure looks like. So your project code, once you have your project established, you've opened it up in IntelliJ, you look at the file tree, kind of similar to the way you do in VS Code. It's over on the left, right? You have the project, everything goes in the source folder, and main is where you're going to put all your code, like your classes and stuff. But there is also a test folder for unit testing. And the Java folder is in main. And it looks like I skipped the Java folder on my diagram. So sorry about that. Java is in between main and org. So org is inside Java. And there's a lot of folders there, guys. I'm not surprised that I missed it. Okay. And then all the way down inside org is where you can create packages to, kind of encapsulate all your files together. And so these can be all lowercase, or you can't hyphenate them, but you can use underscores if you really want to separate your words out. But it's very common just to kind of have a bunch of, like if you're gonna have multiple words, just to run it all together. So I could have just made that my package, no underscore. And then any classes that you create, you'll put inside the package. And those are also to be named with, Pascal case, uppercase or capitalized words. And then from there, all of those classes automatically have knowledge of each other because they're all part of the same package. Okay. So this is kind of how we're going to work with this. So let's come over and look at this. And I think, yeah, I kind of already have this example up because we're going to do some stuff in a bit that's going to, as we get into the data types. But you can see here, I was not able to figure out how to make this part on the left bigger. I did it over here, but not over here. So sorry, this is really, really super tiny, but that's why I put it on the slide. You got source, main, Java, org, and then I've got this package that I created called example. And inside that is the main class. And so you can kind of see it's got, the package declared at the top. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then this, the class itself, and then the main method that belongs to the class, which, just to be clear, this being called main has nothing to do with the fact that the class is named main. This will always be called main. This is where it executes things, no matter what the name of the class is. I realized later that could actually be kind of confusing. So yeah, so that's it. And, everything inside this package, when I hit run, it runs. And so like right now, absolutely nothing happens because I don't have anything in here. But we could, go ahead and do that thing that you saw earlier where we use system.out.println. And then we just put a string in here and say, welcome to unit 2. And now I'm going to run it again. And welcome to unit 2. There it is. And let me see if I can get this too. Yeah. Is that a little better? Can everybody read that okay? Yeah. Okay. Josh, you got a question?
Yeah, I was just thinking or wondering, when using IntelliJ, I was wondering if there were any shortcuts, kind of like a certain other text editors or something like that for specifically more commonly used lines of code, such as the sysout, print, ln.
I think I'm a lot less familiar with IntelliJ because I'm primarily a front-end developer, so I use VS Code mostly. But you probably could come up with, there's probably a number of ways to do that. I know, like in VS Code, I use, like emit and stuff like that all the time to like use shortcuts. But I would ask that question in the lecture questions channel, and there's going to be TAs who have a lot more experience with this than I do, who can probably answer that question. And if not, Google it. Google knows all the things. You just have to kind of use the right search terms, right?
SOUT is shorthand for system out, so you can just type in SOUT.
SOUT, good to know. Let's try that out. Cool. Yeah, check that out. Perfect. SOUT, I love it. Okay. See, I'm learning things. This is good. Okay, so good question. Ricky, you got a question?
Yeah, for package, we've got org.example. What is the reason that we don't go like further up the tree? Like, it's like, why not like main org example?
Because it's only interested in what's inside this Java folder. So you only have to refer to it starting here. Yeah, I mean, I don't, the architecture of this thing, I can't answer that question.
Okay.
But I can tell you that it's only dependent on anything that's inside this Java folder. So that's, you only have to go as far back as org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so let's we've got a little example there how to do this. Let's start jumping in and looking at some syntax. We're going to look at typing in Java primarily, and we'll also look at how to get user input and importing packages and how to write static methods. And that is all you will need to know in order to do your studio tonight. Okay, so static versus dynamic typing. You already know a lot about this because we did this with TypeScript. But you know, with JavaScript, you didn't have to assign types, and the JavaScript interpreter just inferred the type from the value. Then you learn TypeScript to deal with this. But Java always requires it, always. So you have to be very, very specific. And there are more specific data types in Java than there are in JavaScript, particularly when it comes to numbers. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. Let's look at them. Okay, so let's start with strings and characters. There's actually a difference between multiple characters strung together and a single character. And the syntax is a little different, and the types are different. So you would declare a string with string, capital S. And like JavaScript and Java, strings are immutable. If you don't remember what that means, it basically means that you can't just go and say, I want this specific character at this index to be a different value. You have to overwrite the entire string. That's what it means. But it's exactly the way it works in JavaScript. I'm clicking and nothing. Oh, here we go. Strings require double quotes. So unlike JavaScript, where you can use either single or double quotes, in Java, you have to use double quotes. Whereas characters, you can declare a single character with car or char, some people say. And that is the lowercase c. That's the usual way to declare a character. And it's just, you know, single quotes, not double. So that's a good distinction. And that can be letters, it can be digits, punctuation, or, you know, escape characters. So I've got an example down here. Well, let's go through all the examples. I've been watching a lot of Critical Role, guys. My new favorite show is Critical Role. And so we've got these strings, right? And every single one of them, I have started out with string. So in JavaScript, you used let, you know, right? This keyword let. And then in TypeScript, you kind of just, you know, you use colons and put the type after it. In Java, you put it first. So you're going to start off with string and then give the name of the variable and then assign it the value. And you'll notice that all of these are double quotes, right? Whereas over here with the characters, I'm using the, you know, char, char. Boy, I'm going to have to take a poll on that and see what's more popular, because I really don't know. That's how you declare it. And then of course, single quotes for everything, right? And there's that new line character. So you'll notice that even though this is like, it looks like two characters, it's actually one, because that's a special character, the escape characters with the backslash like that. So that's pretty much it on those. As we work with them, you're going to have get a little bit more of a sense of like when you're using a string and when you're using a character. And I'm going to try to point some of that out when we get into the common methods, which we are now. So when you're working with strings, you can use, these are ones that are all really similar to JavaScript, you know, char at, substring, index of, split, trim, two uppercase, two lowercase, concat, and then there's ones that are a little different. So length actually has parentheses on the end because in Java, it's a method, not a property. So you actually have to call the method to retrieve the length. So just you're gonna have to get in the habit of that. But if you're ever wondering, why is it not giving the length, or why do I have an error? Tack some parentheses onto that bad boy and you'll be in good shape. Okay, contains is similar to the JavaScript includes. It really basically works the same way. You're like looking for a substring in a string, or, you know, maybe even just a single letter. Equals is used to compare strings. So in JavaScript, you just very simply used the equals, or actually, I mean, most of the time equals. But For now, there's actually ways to do that in Java, but for now, launch code is encouraging you to use just the equals method to compare one string to the other. And then we're going to talk about the nuances of the operators when we actually talk about operators. We'll get there. Okay, so that's a good list that is obviously not comprehensive. You can Google online if you would like to learn more of what types of string methods are out there that are built into the string class. Okay, so let's talk about primitives. Number types, I mentioned there were several of them. So integer gets declared with int. Any decimal number that's no more than 7 digits, including or not counting the decimal, you use with float. And anything bigger than that, up to like 15, 16 digits is double. This can be positive or negative. So you can kind of see down at the bottom, I've got these examples with, int, nice round number equals 7, float, small decimal number is negative 28.194, and then double, large decimal number. And then I've got this incredibly long, decimal places. So here's the thing about this. This kind of harkens back to the days when memory was, everyone had to be a lot more conservative about memory in the early days of computing, right? So, or earlier days, I should say. And things are much faster now, but still, this is the system. So if you're going to do calculations that are going to involve, decimal numbers because you're dividing or you're multiplying by some sort of like pi or something, for example, and you're going to do that for studio tonight, you should use a double instead of float because it's more accurate. Java sacrifices accuracy for speed when it uses floats. So you can end up with something being like not, quite what you expected it to be. It can be off by some, decimal amount and fractional amount. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Okay, so Booleans, straightforward, just like JavaScript, Boolean is a Boolean. And value is true or false. Now, the characters are actually primitives, but string is not. It's actually an object type. So it's always going to be the uppercase S on the string. And you can see I've got a couple examples down here, and you've seen the character example already, but of course, Boolean is a very simple example. But same thing, just start off with the type first, and then give the name of the variable, and then set the value. Okay, so this concept of auto boxing that's related to primitives, I'll touch on briefly. There's actually a much lengthier explanation in your book if you're interested, but I'm going to just touch on it for a second. So there are non-primitive object types for each primitive. So capital I integer for int, capital F float for float, double for double, Boolean for Boolean, and char for char. And you can use those in certain circumstances, which you can kind of dig into a little bit later. It's not important for today. But just so you know, in the old days, developers would have to write several lines of code to box or unbox them and convert them from one to another. But today, modern versions will automatically convert it, and that's called auto boxing. So now you know what that means, and what's happening when it happens. So just kind of tuck that away, and then later when you're kind of trying to go, wait, why is it integer with a capital I instead of int, with a lowercase I, you can remember that we had this slide up here and discussed it briefly. Okay. So packages and imports. Kind of talked about this already, but you declare the package with the package keyword at the top. This is how it knows that it's all part of the same system, and so every class needs to have this at the top. And then after that, if you have imports, you can use the import keyword. So the import keyword is similar, where you use the package name first and then attach the class to it. So in this example that I've got here, java.util is the class, and that's the package. It's a built-in package that comes, packaged together already. It's built into Java. And scanner is the class that is part of that package. So you're just saying, I want to go over to that utils package or util package, and I want to grab the scanner class and use it in this file. And this is how you do it. And we are about to demonstrate how that works. So when you want to import and initialize a scanner, you first import it, as we kind of I just showed you. And then you're going to declare and initialize an object of the scanner class. It's very common to use the name input. So just like you did when you were, doing this in JavaScript. So in this example over here, you can see that the very first thing that I've done up at the top is import, java.util.scanner. And that should be a capital S. Sorry about that. I'll fix that later. And then down here, inside the main class where, all the code executes for the class, inside the main method, you've got the declaration, which is the scanner input here. And then we're assigning it as a new, an object of the scanner class. And then we're passing in the system.in. So I'm going to do one more bullet point, and then I'm going to, system.out is how we, as you might remember, is how we print things out to the console. System.in is how we take it in. So if you combine system.in with this scanner class, it allows you to take input pretty easily from there. So the way this kind of works, you're gonna, use the input itself to receive the response and then store it in a variable. So that's what's happening on the next line. So I'm gonna walk through it and kind of point these things out again. So here's the import statement. And again, that should be a capital S there. This is where you declare your variable that's going to represent the scanner object. And this is where you initialize it as a new scanner object and pass in that system.in. Then before you get the input, you need to precede it by printing to the console and telling the user what it is that they are about to give you. So in this case, I've just got a real simple, enter a number. So you print that to the console. And then in the next line, this is where you're going to actually use the input object to receive it. And in this case, I'm asking for a number. So I'm going to add this, tack on this method nextInt, input.nextInt to say, give me a number. And then I'll store it in this new variable that I've declared with the int, keyword as usernum. And all of that takes place on one line following, asking them for it. And then I can do something with it. And in this case, all I've chosen to do is just to print it out. But the last thing you do after you're done at the end of the class, the end of the main function method, Java developers will sometimes get a little bit cranky about using the word function instead of method, because in Java, everything's class-based. So I'm going to do it because I'm a front-end developer. And so I'm used to kind of going both directions, functions and methods. It's always method, guys. So if I say function, just ignore me. I meant to say method. So you got all of that going on. And the very last thing you do is close it. And the reason you close it is because otherwise you've got this thing out there that's kind of taking up resources. It leaves things open for, it's a possible security risk for somebody to take advantage of, putting information into your system that you don't intend for it to. So input.close will take care of that at the very end of the main method, after you've done everything that you want to do and executed all your code. Okay, now that I've kind of explained all of that, I will take questions. Ben?
I just want to clarify. So when I was doing the exercises out of the textbook, what you have here on the screen for syntax looked like it was pretty standard in every class structure. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, yes. You talking about just the signature of the class and the main method?
Where it says public static void main, then so main is the class, obviously you're calling it again, but then string args, scanner input, scanner system in, so on and so forth. All that seemed to be in every class method that I created. So I just wanted to make sure that that is standard and not just like something only we're doing in this course, but it's done differently in the real world?
Oh, yeah. So in any Java class where you're executing things, you have to have this main method. If it's just a class that's intended to represent an object, you may not, you'd have a constructor instead. And we'll get into that later. But yeah, and then as far as the scanner goes, you only need to import and create that object if you intend to take user input as part of your execution of the code. That's it. Yeah. Mitchell?
Yeah, I have a quick question on the declaration line there where it says scanner input. Is input treated as like a variable to where you could, call input like user input basically, or anything that made sense in the code?
Yeah, so input is a variable that is now an object of the scanner class. And you'll notice that it's declared with scanner as the type. So you use the class name as the type. And we actually kind of did that with TypeScript too, if you'll remember. If we had like things that were, we created a custom type or a class or things like that, then you just used that as the type. So that's what's happening here. We're saying we got a scanner class, we're going to create a variable that's of that type, and we're going to initialize it as an object, a new instance of the scanner class.
Okay, cool. And one quick follow-up to that. Is there any instance to where you would have multiple scanner objects going at the same time? I kind of got a little confused in one of the exercises about that.
No, there's no I can't think of any reason why you would. It's, you only have to access it once and you can use it because it has all these different methods. So then you use the methods like nextInt so that you can be more specific from there, but you only have to access the class once through a single object. And then you can use the heck out of it however you want.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Ian?
I understand that the scanner is being set to system and whatever is being inputted, but I don't see any code that necessarily says that it is getting like user input. Like it goes from printing out to the console to enter a number, and then it just goes to storing the number, and I don't see where it's getting the input from that.
It's in this part right here where I've got the blue underline that says receive. Input.nextInt, that is what basically the code says, okay, now I'm expecting information. It's an expectation of a value from the user. So it's going to, essentially, you're going to print some information that tells them that you're about to ask them for something and what it is. And then it'll basically just hold there and say, okay, I'm expecting some sort of input to come. And then once it does come, it assigns it to this value.
Okay,
and I know it's a little bit, it's harder to wrap your head around the way this is done. It's a little different than the way JavaScript does it, like procedurally, but yeah. And that's why I wanted to kind of explain it this way, because it's like you're preceding the actual reception of the input with the explanation to the user of what it is you're looking for.
Yeah,
because
that
you
makes
don't
sense.
do it all at once. Yeah. Okay. It's 20 after. We're going to need to move on in a second. Mina, I will take your question real quick.
It seems that as you mentioned, input is a object, right? But how an object is getting stored as an integer variable?
It's not. So see how input has .nextInt on it? It's calling a method of that class. That method nextInt returns an integer.
Is input an object or a variable?
It's an object. Well, it's a variable that represents an object. Yeah. It points to that object.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can use that input object, call all these different methods, and let's move on and do this, because then I think it'll help you understand if, oh, I skipped it. Did I skip it? Okay, hang on a second, guys. I am not seeing, I wonder if my my slides are out of order. Dun, 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 dun. They're not. I must have a slide that's like hidden or something. Okay, so give me just a second. Let me escape out of this. What happened? I wonder if I accidentally deleted it. Okay, I had a slide that actually showed you all the rest of these methods, and it looks like I might have. Interesting. Okay, let's go over and find it, and then we're going to talk about it right here because it's in the book. Scanner, here we go. Okay, so right here you can see is a list of all these different methods that you call on the scanner object, which we often call input. So you would do like, input dot, next double if you're expecting a double, or input dot next if you're expecting a string. So right here in the center, it's telling you what the return type is of each of these methods that you're calling on this input object of the scanner class. And then these four right here that say has next or has next int, this is a way for you to check and see, is the input they're giving me the right, like, is it valid for this data type? And that's important for validation because Java is strictly typed and it can't just kind of infer it, and convert it automatically. It has to make sure that it's actually what you're looking for. So if you expect an int, but they give you a decimal number, then you're going to have some way to handle that. And actually tonight in your studio, I think, there's a bonus mission about possibly like doing a while loop, to do a little bit of validation. And you would use one of these to kind of check and see, is this actually the right type before I move on in my code? But these are the ones that actually grab the value, make sure that it's, that's returned in the correct type. And then that's how you can store it in your variable, the way that you store it here. So let me come back to here. Oh, that is not what I meant to do. I always forget that this puts it in full screen. Okay, that'll work. Sort of. Oh man, come on. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So right there where, we do the receive thing, that next int, that's what makes sure that what's coming in is an int. And then you have this user num that you have typed as an int. And so you can, in fact, store that as long as it is correct, correctly an integer. And if it's not and you haven't validated it, it'll break the program. But as long as they actually enter a valid integer, you'll be fine. Because it's expecting it and it will convert it into an integer in the process. Okay, so I hope that helps, but we do need to move on. I'm going to, real quick, let's see, let's skip this. Okay, let's go to here. We'll just import and then java.util.scanner, get our import up there, and then we'll come to here and we're going to say type scanner, and we'll call it input. And then we're going to say it's a new instance of the scanner class, and we're going to pass in system.in so that it's taking information in. And then here, this is where we precede the input with some sort of output. And I'm going to try the little S out. Hey, check that out. Okay. And say, enter a number. And I might say like a whole number to try to make sure they know it's, an integer. And then I can receive the input, but I need to store it in a variable kind of all at the same time. So I'm going to say int, user number, and set that equal to input.nextInt so that it'll expect an int from them and convert it into one. And then once they have that, I can do something with it. In this case, all I'm going to really do to verify it is I'm going to just print it out and say, your number is, and then I can just concatenate that with user number, and it should print that out. And then, of course, we always main, and this should say method. We close it, right? So input.close at the end once we're done. And I mean, maybe I use it a whole bunch more times in here and get more input or whatever, but at the very, very end, I would want to close it out. Okay, so let's try running this and see what we get. Okay, welcome to unit 2, enter a whole number. So I'm gonna put in 16. Your number is 16, so that worked. And if I run it again, and it says enter, wow, do I really have to do this every single time? Okay. And I say 2.7, it throws an exception because it's not an integer. It can't convert it into an integer. So this is where you'd want to have some sort of validation, and you would use one of those, Boolean methods to check and see, does it have an integer, has next-n? And if not, you would ask them again. And, assign, keeps saying, let's check it again, until they finally give you something that actually can be converted into an integer, and then it'll work. Okay, so you're going to get some good practice with this during Studio. Before we do that, you're also going to be writing a method. So I want to talk about this real quick. Static methods are methods that can just be called on the class. So remember that a method is just a function that's defined within a class. I kind of talked about this already earlier. So Java is entirely class-based. So all functions are methods. So we just call them methods. So for now, when you write a method, you're going to declare them as public so that they're available to other classes in the package. And you're going to declare them as static so that they can be called on the class itself, not just objects of the class. And then you also want to make sure you declare the return type. So if you look over here in this example, we've got, outside the main method, some, below it, generally, you would write these methods. So you've got the main method up here, and then you come down below it and you say public static void print. Public static void. Okay, so public makes it available to other classes. Static, make sure that you can, call it on the class. And void means that it doesn't return any value. You're just going to do something. And then I've named it print, and I've said that it has a single parameter, which is a string, str, but it's of the type string. And then all I'm doing is doing system.out.println and then string. So I've created a nice little function for myself to just be able to say print this instead of, system.out.println. It's an easy example. Okay, but you can see I've got that return type in there, right? So same thing here. Public static int add 2, my favorite little example for, stuff, add 2 numbers. And I've got int n1, int n2 as the 2 parameters. And then I'm just returning n1 plus n2. So back inside the main method, which is of course above all of these, I would print, some sort of string. And then I can also print the result of the add 2 method, but because that's an integer, I actually have to convert it to a string. So I'm using this, there's multiple ways to do it. One way is to use string.value of and take it, and that will convert it to a string. So let's do this real quick, just so we can kind of go through it again. So again, here is the main method. And all of the code that's going to execute when we, execute the file, when we run it, needs to be inside here. Any additional methods that you write have to be below it. So we're going to come down here, and this is where I'm going to say public static void, and I'm going to call it print and give it a string. And then I'm going to say print the string. That's all I want to do. So that'll take care of that. And I could come up here back inside the main method and call it. And I don't need to use, unlike TypeScript and JavaScript where you had to say this dot and things like that. You don't have to do that here. You just refer to it directly. Outside this class, you'd have to call it on the class or call it on an object that is an instance of the class. But inside, you just call the method. So I'm just going to say print and say, hello there. And I can run this, and for now I'm going to, nope, well, it's okay. Just get rid of my input so that we don't have to worry about that. Okay, and there we go. Hello there. So it printed it out. So the second one, we can say public static int add 2 and have int n1 and int n2. And then here we're going to just return n1 plus n2. And then up here, I will call it inside the main method. And I'm going to print the result. But I also have to use string.value of to convert it. So what I'm converting is the return value from add2. So I'm going to call add2 and give it 3 and 8. And then close that off with a semicolon. You can see that it's very picky about the semicolons. So it forces you to have really good code stuff. And then we'll run it again and see if we get 11. We're expecting 11. There it is. So I'll make that bigger. We got welcome to unit 2 from the very top. We got hello there, and we've got 11. Okay, and I was going to do some examples of like basic variable, declarations and initializations, but I trust that you guys are going to have no trouble with that because it's very straightforward. I really wanted to spend more time on the scanner in the classes because that's where things can get a little tricky. Sorry, methods. Yeah, scanner and methods. Okay. So we're at time to go to studio, and I want to make sure you have plenty of time because I know there's probably some of you who've had a little bit of trouble with your, installations, and you're probably going to want to work with your TAs and peers on that. So, but the studio is very helpful. This is really, really foundational stuff. Work together, figure it out. And it's going to be really good for you to have this basis, and then we can kind of build on it from there, and we'll start getting into, other data types like our data structures like arrays and hash maps and array lists, and we'll get into classes in the next couple of classes. Eric, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one. Sorry. You converted the integer output for that add2 to a string. Are you unable to print integers in the console?
Not directly.
No, so everything you print
okay.
has to be a string.
No, let me clarify. My print function requires it to be a string.
Ah, I see.
So in order for me to pass the return value from this method into this method, I have to convert it because that's what this is expecting. And this is what I mean when I say that Java is a very exacting. You have to, everything has to line up. So you have to pay really, really close attention to all of your types and how they work. But yeah, like if I was to just go straight and just, print add2, and let's make it 2 and 4 this time, and run it. Yeah, in this case, the system.out.println is able to go ahead and convert it from an integer. It was just because my print method required it to be a string that I had to do that. Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
But I did this on purpose because I wanted to be able to touch on that because this starts getting really frustrating really fast if you don't understand it. Yeah. Okay, so for tonight's studio, in chapter 2, you're going to compute the area of a circle, which itself is not all that difficult, but you're going to do it in Java, which is new to you. So you're going to go back to the Java Web Dev Exercises project that you forked and cloned in chapter 1.6. So if you've done that, you'll need to come back to 1.6 and do that. But then you'll create a new package and then write a class, and then going to actually write a separate class and call one method from the other, from one class to the other. You don't have to import methods or classes or methods when they're all part of the same package. You should be able to just go ahead and use it, I believe. But I will come back and I will, demonstrate this for you at the end of class. So if I come back to here, hold on. Yeah, okay. Studio, here we go. Yes, okay. So they're going to walk you through this. Make sure you set up your main method inside your class, and then they'll kind of give you the code for the function, excuse me, I'm going to get used to this, method itself. Then it's going to ask you to, put this in a separate class. So it gives you this link directly to the example that's in the static methods section of the chapter so that you can see how this is done when you're working together with two different classes in the same package. And then the bonus mission to add validation for, negative number, non-numeric character is an empty string. And you can learn, it's got a link right here to the jump ahead to the part where it teaches you about, while loops and do while loops. So if you want to, you know, jump right into that and figure it out, by all means. And then I will come back. So let's come back here at 8 o'clock and I will demonstrate everything for you. And you will be well on your way to becoming a Java developer, one step at a time. All right, any last questions? Nope, okay. Y'all head out to studio and I will see you back here at 8 o'clock.